Bold and original, Citroen's C4 Cactus aims to combine innovation, style and function in one striking design-led piece of family transport. It won't be for everyone, but if you're the sort who likes to go your own way, this compact, affordable and very Gallic take on modern motoring could be right up your street.
To the cynical eye, it would seem that there's very little that's clever, fresh and different about mainstream model automotive design. In fact, a common refrain amongst car buyers is that many new small super minis and family hatchbacks look pretty much the same, delivering only slight and insignificant variations on a tired and well-worn theme. What the market really needs, it seems, is a mass maker able to bring us cars that are quirky, thought-provoking and forward-thinking. A brand like French maker Citroen used to be. The kind of brand that today it aims to be once more. For proof of that, it's delivered as this, the C4 Cactus. This car has no direct predecessor and, if you believe its maker anyway, no direct rivals. In buying it, you get a lightweight, comfort-orientated, bargain-priced, innovatively designed compact family car. And if you know your Citroens, you'll know the sort of thing that kind of design brief references. Back in 1948, the marque bought Europe the clever economy runabout that would come to define post-war France, the 2CV, a model created around almost exactly the same principles that have driven development of this one. OK, so the two cars aren't quite the same. I can't see too many C4 Cactus buyers bumping their machines over ploughed fields, hosing down their interiors or passing their cars on like family heirlooms. Otherwise, though, the simple, sturdy, spacious formula pioneered by the Deux Chevaux over 42 years of production seems to have been passed over intact. There's history here then, though whether it's relevant to the modern market is another question. Many of today's buyers are certainly looking for something different from yet another standard super mini or family hatch, but they won't necessarily be attracted by willful quirkiness. There's no place, in other words, for this car to be different simply for the sake of being so. Nor is it. All of the things that make a C4 Cactus stand out are, according to Citroen, there for a very good reason. For example, the design is full of thoughtful touches that might look strange at first glance, but together will save enough weight to cut your running costs by over 20% compared against something more conventional. And of course, you'll have noticed the air bump plastic cladding. That's the first thing your neighbours will want to talk about. It's there to make light panel damage a thing of the past. It's that cladding, probably more than any other single thing, that has prompted most reviewers to class this car in amongst those in the industry's fastest growing market segment, that for compact crossovers, compact family hatch and super mini based models with an extra dose of style and attitude. Citroen agrees that cars of this kind, like Nissan's Juke and Renault's Captur, are probably closest in concept to this Cactus, but also wants this particular C4 to have an even wider brief. They call it a crosshatch, referencing design and positioning that here sees individuality being about more than just SUV-ness. It's an approach that the French brand hopes buyers shopping in the compact car segment will find rather refreshing. Is that likely? Let's find out. Think of this Cactus as simple, straightforward family transport and you'll bond better with it. I have to confess that initially I didn't and therefore approached the car with all the wrong questions in mind. Did it, I first wondered, have the new EMP2 platform, the underpinnings that all the latest compact PSA group products are supposed to be now featuring for greater efficiency and high-tech electronics? Would there be one of Citroen's trick hydro-pneumatic suspension systems fitted for that brand signature magic carpet ride? Or at least a more powerful diesel? And would Citroen consider the possibility of offering a version with four-wheel drive to catch the attention of crossover folk? Once you understand the thinking behind this product, though, all of these inquiries start to sound a little ridiculous. since it doesn't even have something as basic as a modern stopping system. The front disc brakes aren't ventilated and the rear wheels only get old-fashioned drum brakes. Talk of a sophisticated chassis, complicated damping, all-wheel drive and cutting-edge electronics seems to have rather missed the point, which is, well, saving weight. Something that, rather conveniently for Citroen, at the same time saves production cost too. Adding in all the kind of stuff I've just mentioned would make this Cactus like all its rivals, models that for the most part are heavier than they need to be for the role they actually need to play in life. In fact, it's with weight saving in mind that this C4 Cactus model isn't, well, a C4. Though shaped like that kind of focus-sized family hatch, it's actually based on a stretch version of the simpler chassis that undergirds Citroen's C3 Super Mini. And most of the engines it runs with are borrowed from the C3 too, with the range entry point covered by 75 and 82 brake horsepower PureTech petrol power plants that wouldn't be up to shifting along the brand's much heavier C4. The top 110 brake horsepower version of this 1.2-litre 3-cylinder unit very definitely is, though, which means it can move this lighter Cactus along with alacrity. If you're quick with the rather notchy 5-speed stick shift that all manual gearbox models have to have, 62 miles an hour is possible in 9.3 seconds en route to 117 miles an hour. That's quite a step up from the performance you get in the two feebler petrol models, which make the 62 mile an hour benchmark in 12.9 seconds and max out at 106 miles an hour. Here I'm trying the single diesel version Citroen offered from launch, the Blue HDI 100 variant, a model capable of marrying a 10.7 second 0 to 62 mile an hour sprint time and a 114 mile an hour top speed to 83 miles per gallon combined cycle fuel economy and a squeaky clean 90 grams per kilometre CO2 reading. It's a tempting combination of virtues, particularly as the package comes complete with more than twice as much pulling power through the gears as you get from one of the entry-level petrol versions. Better still, the relaxed, torquey nature of this engine really suits the car and means that if you're late and trying to push things along, you don't have to rev it out to make meaningful progress. That's a pointless and rather frustrating process in the feebler petrol PureTech variants. Firstly, because revving the thing doesn't actually make you go much faster, and secondly, because due to a lack of the usual sound deadening material other small cars would normally have, weight saving again you see, it creates an awful din. In this Blue HDI diesel model, you don't get any of those kinds of issues, so reasonable cross-country pace is possible, providing you don't get too enthusiastic through the bends. Though the Cactus actually hangs on quite well during spirited cornering, the amount of body roll delivered as part of the process quickly discourages that style of driving. The car is more comfortable, of course, in the city, where the reasonably tight turning circle and this Citroen's supple, absorbent ride make it a pleasant commuting companion. As I've already suggested, the suspension setup's a simple one, but it's been expertly tuned to iron out the scars and undulations of our country's terrible tarmac in a way that few rivals can emulate. Only the kind of speed bumps and deeper potholes that a more complex hydropneumatically sprung Citroen would glide across catch the Cactus out. In town, you'll also appreciate some of this model's other virtues. All-round visibility, for example, is great, aided on drizzly days by little touches like the smart wash system that builds the washer nozzles into the tips of the wipers and makes them more effective. Reversing's easy too, thanks to that squared-off rear end. In fact, it's much easier to back into spaces than it is to drive forwards into them because the front end curves away from you, making it hard from the driver's seat to see where the bonnet ends. Still, if you can afford to pay a bit extra, there are parking sensors and a self-parking city park pack to help deal with that issue. Trendy townfolk will be the people Citroen will mainly be targeting with the automatic versions of this car, the ones you have to go for to have the clever full-width sofa-style front seat.
There are two such variants, one featuring the PureTech Petrol unit in 82 brake horsepower form, and the other using a 92 brake horsepower version of the brand's older, less efficient 1.6 litre eHDI diesel engine. Both of these options utilise the brand's ETG, or Efficient Tronic Gearbox transmission, which is actually one of those automated manual units. Though such a setup can shift through the gears for you, it's necessary to slightly lift off between changes if you're to avoid rather jerky progress. That means you may want to snick through the cogs yourself, using either the provided easy push gear lever or the steering wheel paddle shifters, though you may feel that doing this rather defeats the object of opting for the auto model in the first place.
Come on, what other mainstream brand could really have bought us this car? You may not like it, but you'll certainly notice it and want to talk about it. Some will love the look, while others will struggle to see the point. Would that all automotive design produced such clear, distinct reactions? Whatever your preferred standpoint, you can't deny the way this Citroen delivers on its promise of flamboyantly different, back-to-basics motoring with a uniquely French twist. The body marries sweeping curves with pure, smooth surfaces, flowing lines and bold design. The narrow, high-tech LED front light signature, the stylised roof rails, the distinctive rear quarter light segments, the floating roof and the 3D effect rear tail lamps. There's a lot to take in. If it's all to your taste, you'll find the whole effect supremely stylish and sensible too. Designer Mark Lloyd believes the two issues need not be contradictory, and for proof, points at the feature most likely to get the neighbours talking when this Citroen appears in your driveway. These side cladding panels, known by the brand as air bumps. These raised thermoplastic polyurethane mouldings are like a cactus's spikes, in that they're a defence mechanism, not in this case from wild animals, but from everyday dents and dings caused to your side panels by things like supermarket trolleys or somebody else's car door. Indeed, Citroen reckons you could scrape a shopping trolley right down the side of a C4 Cactus and the air bumps would save it from damage. Bear in mind, though, that protection from a head-on hit depends on the stray trolley hitting the air bump spot on. I'll say a little more about the name, as in some ways it's slightly misleading. Apart from prickly desert plants, the Cactus bit references a Citroen design study that's been doing the motor show rounds since 2007, a prototype primarily produced to point the way towards a range of newfangled engine technologies, including a petrol hybrid unit bolstered by compressed air. Now, there's nothing as revolutionary as that in this productionised C4 Cactus, up to date though its PureTech Petrol and Blue HDI diesel technology might be. Nor, by the way, is it actually any kind of C4. The underpinnings here borrowed not from Citroen's C4 family hatch, but instead based upon a stretched version of the platform you'd find in the brand's smaller C3 Super Mini. There's a reason for this, and it's the same one the French maker trots out to explain almost every aspect of this car's design, that of saving weight. It explains not only the compact feather-light platform, but also the use of special high-yield strength steel, the aluminium bonnet, and the downsized 1.2-litre petrol engines that beat beneath it. As a result, a PureTech-powered Cactus can weigh in at just 965 kilograms, which is a massive 25% less than the kind of ordinary Focus-sized family hatch that, in comparison, will give you virtually no more space or performance. Makes you think, doesn't it? Inside, it's equally futuristic and would look even more so if, in this case, I were trying an automatic version. For this variant offers a unique, continuous sofa-style front seat that stretches from one side of the cabin to the other, though can still only accommodate two people. In the case of this manual model, it's a touch disappointing to have to revert to a more familiar layout, the need for a floor-mounted gear stick necessitating the installation of a couple of conventional chairs, though they're well bolstered and supportive and have a premium feel when trimmed in the optional black leather and cloth that's featured here. Compensatory design flourishes that all models get include this aircraft-style handbrake, door handles inspired by leather luggage straps, and what is probably my favourite feature, this huge stylised lidded glove box. The reason it's so big is that for the first time on a production car, the dashboard doesn't have to swallow a passenger airbag. This feature instead moved up to the roof where it's mounted just under the headlining. Other practical areas of storage include a handy shelf, perfectly sized for your smartphone, and the kind of large door bins you'd want for everyday family life. Otherwise, the atmosphere is simple and minimalistic, with the operational functionality of the car confined almost completely to a couple of digital LCD screens, the smaller of the two visible through this smart bitone steering wheel. Though the information this display provides is clear and easy to take in, there isn't actually much of it. You have to do without a rev counter, for example, and the layout could be better designed. It's also unfortunate that the wheel you view it through can't be altered for reach. It only goes up and down. One reason why Citroen specifies a height-adjustable front seat as standard across the range. Switch your gaze to the middle of the fascia and you'll find buttons and switchgear largely notable by its absence, almost everything having instead been moved onto a 7-inch colour touchscreen. Despite the freestanding look, it's not removable, which would have been a clever touch in this kind of car, but it is very capable, dealing with everything from the stereo to Bluetooth, from media streaming to satellite navigation. Now, amongst the useful technologies it can offer is the Citroen Multi-City Connect application portal, onto which you can download a range of apps that'll make your everyday life easier. These include a fuel app that'll help you find the nearest service station, a Michelin traffic app that gives live traffic information, a Coyote app that offers alerts on high-risk roads, and Yellow Pages and TripAdvisor apps that help to locate hotels and restaurants. I've no issue with any of that. What I'm not so sure about, though, is the designer's decision to also use this screen as a replacement for a conventional set of ventilation and air conditioning controls. Now, while this might sound like a great idea in principle, it can, in practice, be rather annoying when, say, you're driving along with the sat-nav showing and then have to take your eyes off the road and shuttle through the menus list just to change the temperature, stabbing away at the touchscreen to try and get a response. Call me a Luddite, but I think I'd happily go back to a rotary dial for that one. Time to take a seat in the rear and put the practical promises Citroen has made with this car to the test, principally those suggesting family hatch standards of space despite the super mini underpinnings. In terms of legroom, this model delivers on those claims thanks to a wheelbase that's been stretched to match that of the brand's more conventional Focus Class C4 family hatch. There's even more storage space than you'd expect thanks to these big door pockets. And headroom's not bad either, though is a touch more restricted if you go for this full-length panoramic glass roof, an option that floods the cabin with light. It doesn't even need a blind, thanks to its Category 4 protection from UV rays. So far, so good. Where there is an issue back here, though, is when it comes to width. This Citroen's underpinnings may have been pulled back lengthwise, but they haven't been stretched from side to side to match, and the result is that a Cactus is as narrow as any other little Fiesta-sized car in terms of shoulder width. That means 3 adults across the back seat will be very squashed indeed. Fortunately, I found that a trio of kids fitted in just fine, though mine complained bitterly about the fact that the windows don't go down. You've only got these hinged flaps, which Citroen says are there to save weight, and cynics say are there to save cost. The same 2 comments apply when you move back to the luggage bay, and discover this to be the only C-segment size car I can think of that doesn't offer a split-folding rear bench. Citroen says that the deletion of this feature saves 6 kilograms of weight, but that's a penalty I think most owners would gladly shoulder for the versatility you get from such an arrangement. Still, at least much of the time, you may not need to push forward the seats, thanks to a reasonably sized 358-litre boot. That's 50 litres less than you'd get in a conventional Citroen C4 hatch, but it's par for the course amongst most of the Nissan Juke-style small crossover models that many potential buyers would otherwise be looking at. In this segment, only the Skoda Yeti and the Renault Captur offer significantly more space than this. If you've bigger loads to carry and can get them over the rather high loading lip, then pushing forward that rear bench frees up a space that'll be sufficient for most needs, though unfortunately the cargo bay that opens up is anything but flat. Still, 1,170 litres is decently class competitive as a figure and is significantly more than you'd get in rivals like Suzuki's Vitara and Fiat's 500X. Expect to pay somewhere in the £13,000 to £18,500 bracket for your C4 Cactus, with a range based around a single 5-door body style and the choice of either 1.2 litre petrol or 1.6 litre diesel power, with output options either way. Most sales will be at the bottom end of the petrol lineup, where many will want to find the small premium necessary to progress from the entry-level PureTech 75 engine to the pokier PureTech 85 unit. From here, though, there's quite a big jump of nearly £2,000 to get yourself the extra performance of either the PureTech 110 power plant or the Blue HDI diesel that we've been trying here. Both these pokier engines are also shared with Citroen's more conventional C4 hatch, a car offering a model-for-model saving of around £1,200 over this Cactus. Target buyers, though, the French brand hopes, will think the Cactus's premium a price worth paying for what is undeniably a more interesting, more fashionable product. If you want an automatic, you'll need Citroen's ETG transmission, the letters short for Efficient Tronic Gearbox, a setup that offers steering wheel paddles and an easy push gear stick. The system's offered either on the mid-range PureTech 82 petrol variant for a premium of around £700, or if you want a diesel, comes mated to an older tech eHDI 92 engine for a premium of around £200. On to the value proposition represented by C4 Cactus pricing across the board. Now, to be frank, there's nothing else on the market quite like this Citroen, but there are plenty of other compact fashion-conscious choices you could make that each in their own way get quite close to the kind of thing this car is trying to be. Essentially, the bottom line here is that for not much more than the cost of a run-of-the-mill Super Mini, you can, with a Cactus, get something a little larger and much more fashionable. You'll probably have heard talk of this kind of idea many times before. Sometimes with models like the Mini Hatch 5-door and Fiat's rather odd 500L. But those cars are significantly more expensive to buy and, in the Fiat's case, much pricier to run. Mainly, though, the concept defines what is probably the fastest-growing genre in the automotive industry right at present, that of the small two-wheel drive crossover. Compact family hatch and Super Mini-based models with an extra dose of style and attitude. One model, the Nissan Juke, originated and developed this sector, but in recent times another, Renault's Captur, has played a big role in helping to further develop the segment. In terms of price, size, style and positioning, these, I'd suggest, are the two cars that are closest in outlook to this one. In terms of cold, hard figures, the Juke might be the easier of the pair to dismiss for potential Cactus buyers, for it's around 20% thirstier and dirtier. That's a big handicap. The Captur does better, but one of those will still cost you about 10% more than the Citroen would to run. In fact, no other rival in this sector can beat this Citroen's fuel and CO2 returns. So if you already like the avant-garde style of this car, that might help you make up your mind right there. If you still need some convincing, then I'll try and talk you briefly through the way the other alternatives stack up. The next two closest alternatives to Cactus ownership probably lie in the form of Peugeot's 2008 and Fiat's 500X. Both are similar in concept, but if you're the kind of person that would feel quite comfortable parking this in front of astonished shoppers, then I think you'd find the style of these two models really too restrained. The Kia Soul is another possible choice, but the petrol version's inefficient and the diesel well over £1,000 more than this blue HDI Cactus. Another potential rival that's almost within this Citroen's budget, but which probably won't really appeal to a typical Cactus buyer, is the Ford EcoSport, cruder to drive with a smaller boot and once again much higher running costs. The budget brands have also weighed into this segment. The Dacia Duster uses much the same petrol and diesel engine technology you'll find in a Renault Captur, yet costs around 20% less. It's a cruder car, though, and more of a utilitarian SUV than a Cactus-style crossover. Dacia also offers its Sandero Super Mini in stepway form with SUV styling cues if you want to save even more, but that car seems a bit of a half-hearted effort when pitched alongside this one. For me, a better budget brand option is SsangYong's Tivoli. Though not quite as cheap as Dacia's offerings, it's a more modern, small crossover product with greater relevance to the kind of car this Citroen is trying to be. As for the other choices you might be looking to make amongst models in this segment, well, I'm afraid that you may find them to be somewhat pricey. Now, I'm thinking here of contenders like Skoda's Yeti, Jeep's Renegade, Vauxhall's Mokka, Honda's HR-V, Mazda's CX-3 and the Mini Countryman. They're all good cars, but they all mostly sell from around £17,000 to £20,000 and beyond. That's a big jump up from the kind of £13,000 to £16,000 budget you'd need to own most mainstream Cactus variants. Too big a jump, I'd suggest, for many potential buyers. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is this Citroen that you really want, then you're going to need to know just how strong this car's value proposition is when it comes to standard spec. The answer is that most of what you'd expect comes included, though I need to point out that all buyers have to pay extra for a space-saver spare wheel, have to do without a split-folding rear bench seat, and must have pop-out rather than wind-up rear windows. These things apart, though, the kit tally is reasonably comprehensive. Even with entry-level touch variants, buyers can expect LED daytime running lights and the feature that will create the biggest talking point with this car, these air bump side panels. Here I've got them in black, but you can also get yours finished in either grey or what Citroen calls dune or chocolate shades. The idea being to enable buyers to create a custom match with either of 10 different body colours and 3 choices of interior trim. Talking of interior trim, the cabin in all models features a height-adjustable driver's seat and powered front windows. Plus you get electric mirrors, hill start assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, and cruise control with a speed limiter to preserve your licence through roadworks or in urban areas. There are clever touches too, like the smart wash system that builds washer nozzles into the tips of the wipers to better clean the screen. The key across-the-board interior feature, though, is the 7-inch touch-drive colour infotainment screen, via which you can access a 4-speaker stereo with a DAB digital radio, plus aux-in and USB connectivity, and the various technologies accessible through the Citroen Multi-City Connect application portal, onto which you can download various useful apps. Most Cactus buyers, though, will want to find the premium of around £1,200 that Citroen asks to graduate up to mid-range Flair specification. After all, without the extra style features you get at this level, things like the gloss black trim used on the A and B pillars and these rear inserts, I'm not sure that the look of this car really works. Also helping in this regard are things like roof bars that you can specify either in gloss black or white, with the same true for the exterior mirror trims. Body-coloured door handles and 16-inch alloy wheels apply the final outside finishing touches. Inside the car, the story is a similar one. You have to stretch up to the mid-range Flair trim level I've been talking about to get the little touches that make a Cactus the style-conscious little car Citroen originally intended it to be. Things like the sofa-style front seats, the aircraft-style handbrake and the distinctive bitone leather steering wheel with its satin chrome insert. Other more expected, but probably more important, Flair features include air conditioning and Bluetooth phone connectivity. Another reason you may need to buy in at Flair level is that many of the options you might want to consider are only available from this point in the range upwards. Here I'm thinking of things like the Auto Pack, which gives you climate control plus auto headlights and wipers, or the City Camera Pack, which adds rear parking sensors and a colour reversing camera. To that, this particular car also adds a City Park Pack, which will help you identify a parking space, then automatically steer you into it. Other features you may want to look at include black leather and cloth trim and a huge panoramic glass roof that floods the cabin with light. I'd also want to talk to my dealer about the Navigation and Hi-Fi Pack, which adds Citroen's eMyWay satellite navigation, along with an upgraded 6-speaker stereo system featuring a jukebox and an Archimedes digital amplifier. I'd definitely also want to pay extra for the space-saver spare wheel that unfortunately nearly all new cars of this kind force you to pay extra for these days. On to safety. Provision for which includes ISOFIX child seat fastenings, tyre pressure monitoring and all the usual electronic assistance for braking, traction and stability control. You also get twin front, side and curtain airbags. And in this tally, the design of the front passenger airbag is especially interesting. This item mounted in the roof rather than in its usual position springing out from the dashboard. When inflated, the bag completely fills the area between the windscreen and the occupant, acting as a better restraint than a normal front airbag ever could. As for safety options, well, the main one is the Citroen eTouch emergency and assistance system that's been fitted to the car we have here. In the event of an accident, this will automatically summon the emergency services, telling them your exact GPS location. Could be a lifesaver. The bottom line here is fairly straightforward. No other compact, fashion-conscious rival can better this car when it comes to fuel and CO2 emissions. Such are the benefits of the PureTech Petrol and Blue HDI diesel technology that Citroen has been able to install beneath the bonnet of this Cactus. The low weight also helps. One of these tips the scales at just 965 kilograms in petrol form, which is nearly 250 kilograms less than an equivalent conventional Citroen C4 hatch, the weight of 3 average adults. This is thanks to a range of weight-saving measures, some of which are welcome, like the aluminium bonnet, and some of which might slightly irritate, like the pop-out rear windows and the single-piece folding rear bench. You can't argue with the lightweight end result, though, and it explains why the Cactus range can feature the lower-powered 75 and 82 brake horsepower PureTech petrol engines that aren't strong enough to cope with the hefty bulk of a C4 hatch. As you'd expect, that same weight issue means that this car should be cleaner and greener than an ordinary C4 too, or indeed just about any other conventional focus-sized C-segment hatch. With the Blue HDI diesel unit I'm trying here fitted, a Cactus user is supposed to be able to return 83.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out 90 grams per kilometre of CO2, which means it'll go around 7 miles further on every gallon and put out 5 grams per kilometre less CO2 than a C4 hatch with exactly the same engine beneath the bonnet. The more important comparison, though, comes when you put this car up against its small crossover segment rivals. Do that and you'll find that it's about 10% cleaner and greener than a rival diesel Renault Captur and about 20% better in this regard than a rival Nissan Juke DCI. Now, you don't do quite as well in this regard if you opt for your diesel-powered Cactus with an automatic gearbox. Citroen's ETG6 auto transmission usually improves running cost returns, but here it has to be matched to one of Citroen's older tech eHDI engines. Still, most potential owners will still be quite happy with the returns on offer, 80.7 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 92 grams per kilometre of CO2. On to petrol power.
Now, the first point to make here is that there's no running cost saving to be made by choosing the entry-level PureTech 75 engine over the slightly pokier PureTech 85 unit. So, either way, you get 61.4 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 105 grams per kilometre of CO2. Still, it's worth putting those figures in perspective. You'll go 15 miles further on every gallon and put out 33 grams per kilometre less of CO2 than you would in a rival 1.6 litre petrol-powered Nissan Juke. Even the more modern TCE petrol engine fitted to a rival Renault Captur will cost you about 10% more to run. Buyers in search of petrol power wanting the ETG automatic transmission can do even better. The ETG 82 Cactus variant manages 65.7 miles to the gallon and 98 grams per kilometre. You might expect to also be able to order the auto option with the top petrol power plant that Citroen offers on this car, the PureTech 110 unit. This variant, though, comes only with a manual stick shift. Still, at least it's not an engine noticeably much dirtier or pricier to fuel than its lower-powered stablemates, returning 60.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 107 grams per kilometre of CO2. A directly comparable, almost identically priced Nissan Juke 1.2 Di GT manages 50.4 miles to the gallon and 129 grams per kilometre. Enough said. What else? Well, the weight-saving measures also reduce wear on other consumables, including tyres and brake pads. As for the warranty, well, that's the usual unremarkable 3-year, 60,000 mile package. That only leaves insurance, rated at between Group 70 and 90 for the PureTech 82 petrol variants. The lower-powered PureTech 75 version is, for some reason, rated solely at Group 90. If you're looking at the top PureTech 110 model, you'll be talking Group 15A or 16A. And for this BlueTech 100 diesel, the rating is 18A. The eHDI 92 Auto Diesel variant pitches in a Group 16A. The Citroen brand, it seems, is at last being allowed to be distinctive, innovative and different. Though the company's sporting DS models have long suggested this, many of its mainstream offerings have continued to stray rather too close in concept to those of sister brand Peugeot. This car's different though, a Citroen straight from this chevron old school, quirky, striking and uniquely Gallic. Of course, you may not be looking for something quite so extreme, and that's fine. A C3 Super Mini or a C4 family hatch will possibly suit you much better. A C4 Cactus is for a different sort of buyer, the kind of person who half a century ago probably would have bought a Citroen 2CV and revelled in the wobbly cornering, the unusual cabin and the unconventional looks. I'm not suggesting this car to be quite as extreme as that one, but there are certainly clear parallels in the lightweight, spacious and forward-thinking design approach characterised in both cases. All of which would probably be enough to justify this car's existence, even if it wasn't so impressively efficient and practical. As it is, adding in the sensible virtues to a package of idiosyncratic ones has created a refreshing alternative to compact automotive mundanity. This car's closest rivals may lie with Nissan Juke and Renault Captur style small crossovers, but what I've discovered from this test is that its appeal isn't quite the same. Here you have a priority on design rather than fashion, and the difference, I think, is important. You see it in things like the air bump side panelling, the minimalistic cabin, the sofa-style seats, the magic wash wipers and the roof-mounted front airbag. Stuff, in other words, that represents genuinely useful technology rather than trendy tinsel. Which leaves us with what? A car Citroen hopes that target buyers will see as simple, sensible and stylish. A car that makes frugality a little more fun. And that's a concept we can all buy into.